This is the only exorcism book you will ever read that will make you want an exorcism. Crazy but true. I want one like next week. I want one like I want a massage. Like, let's go. Let's work some stuff out. Today we are talking about Sister of Darkness, The Chronicles of a Modern Exorcist by R.H. Stavis. If you were not familiar already, R.H. Stavis is the world's only non-denominational exorcist. She lives and works in Los Angeles, where she performs her non-denominational exorcisms. I learned about R.H. Stavis through one of my favorite podcasts, Last Podcast on the Left. If you were also a fan, you might know that they are doing a seance on Friday, this coming Friday. By the time you've seen this, they've probably already done it. And they've asked RH to kind of be their guide through the seance process. They did a little promo for the seance in a live stream I saw recently. RH spoke a bit about what she's planning on doing, and she mentioned her book, and I thought, that sounds crazy interesting. I want to read that right away. So I did. If I were to sum this book up in a sentence, I would say it is a blend of memoir, spirituality / like metaphysicality, and practical advice. The key topic of this book is RH's spiritual gift and how she interprets and uses that gift. The gift is the ability to see dark or low vibrational entities, which can and do attach to humans, sometimes even places, and siphon energy off in an energy vampire-ish type of way and cause negative side effects, we'll say, in the humans or the places to which they attach. As far as she knows, and as far as I know, she's the only person in the world with this ability. I certainly don't know of anybody else claiming to be a non-denominational exorcist. RH is also a medium in the sense that she can see and communicate with people that have passed on. That ability, the ability to see dead people and communicate with dead people, is different from the ability to recognize and remove these negative entities. So that's what sets her apart as an exorcist specifically. To me, probably the most fascinating thing in this book is the taxonomy that RH has come up with on her own to name and categorize these negative entities. She actually has a diagram that she's made that she puts in the book. I didn't want to totally lift hers out of the book and show it to you, because if you find it interesting, I think you should just go and read the book. But I recreated a very pared down, sort of rough version just so you can get a sense. So mine's kind of goofy, and it has far fewer categories here than hers does. These are organized vertically, top down, from high frequency, high energy frequency, positive, down to lowest frequency, lowest energy signature, negative. At the top, I have put a fun little star guy representing what some people may call God, the divine, the eternal, spirit, source, however you want to phrase that for you personally. I hope God looks like this. I love that guy. At the bottom, where I've put my little thumbs down frowny guy, that represents what you might think of as Satan, the devil, bad, negative energy, the lowest of the low vibrational. It's an interesting side note that RH mentions that she does often communicate with source and spirit, that she's always kind of communicating during exorcisms. But as for like a Satan figure, she's not convinced that anything like that actually exists. She hasn't seen or encountered any actual like ultimate evil, devil. Certainly these negative entities are plenty scary, and we will get into what these are, but I just thought that was interesting. I will also mention before we run through each of these that you'll notice she again has her own taxonomy, her own language. As a non-denominational exorcist, she doesn't want to use terminology or language that's too heavily based or weighted in one particular religious tradition or another. So for example, instead of possession, she says attachment. She refers to these as entities instead of demons. And she gets into a whole like, how do these compare to what we think of as a demon in the book. I also want to mention that there are many more in the list within her book, and there are many more entities that she has seen or does see other than even the ones in her book. She has just listed the ones that she sees most commonly, and then again I've pared that list down even further from there so I can just get into the ones that I find most interesting. So moving down from our God star guy, we have spirit guides, positive figures that can aid us and help us through our lives if we choose to connect with them. Humans I have illustrated here in the middle amongst the grass on the earth. And what she means by putting the humans in the middle here is not that we're like middle frequency so much as we're a mixed bag of both high and low frequency creatures. Moving down frequency from humans, the first negative entity we're encountering here is a Clive. She has given them the name Clives because she feels like they resemble the drawings of famed horror filmmaker Clive Barker. If you don't know what that looks like, I'll put some up here so you can see. They don't look good. They're not cute. Not as cute as our little star god. I'm gonna dig a little more into the different side effects, the negative effects that these entities cause a little later in the video. Right now, I just kind of want to run through the types real quick. Next up, we have wraiths. Wraiths have a different look. She says that they look like the iconic original cover of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and I, like many other millennial children, can think of nothing more horrifying than that. So there you go. Moving farther down, we have realm walkers. These are enormous, very terrifying sounding monsters, effectively, that attach to important people or buildings in some cases. So again, we'll get more into those a little bit later. So now that we've looked at the entities that can attach, how do those attachments happen? In short, it seems that the attachments happen due to trauma. I'm simplifying a bit here from her description, but essentially trauma lowers our frequency, lowers our energy signature, which pulls entities in. They want to feed off of our low energy. So they want to keep you in a low energy state because that's when you're vulnerable. That's when they can interact and feed off of you. This also has something to do with the way that trauma is stored in the body. If you're familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score, you might be familiar with that concept. Great book, by the way. She does mention in the book that most of us have had some kind of attachment at some point in our lives, and that makes sense. Most of us adults, we have had some kind of trauma, whether that's from a parent, a romantic relationship gone wrong, a physical event like a car accident. Not every single traumatic event is going to cause an attachment, but that does seem to be the root cause of the attachments that she sees and addresses. So again, in siphoning off our energy, these entities cause negative side effects in our lives. She does note that the entities tend to act in sort of a parasite host fashion. So their aim isn't to kill the person they're attached to, because then they wouldn't be able to feed off that person anymore. The attachments might manifest instead as physical ailments, ranging from annoying to debilitating. She says joint pain is a common one she sees. I think that's really interesting. But this could show up as GI issues, as fertility issues. But the side effects are not limited to the physical. These can also show up in different ways. Creative blocks, writing blocks, for example, the inability to perform, to do something creative that you're trying to do, something that you were usually very capable, even very adept at doing. And again, each one of these entities is going to cause somewhat slightly different side effect in the person to whom they've attached. So starting with the Clives are like the mini bosses. They're not super powerful, but they drag you down. So she says if you're already prone to sadness, they will drag you down toward depression. If you're already prone to drinking a little too much, they will drag you down to alcoholism. Wraiths are different in that they seem to be somewhat stronger in a way, and they are specifically attracted to sexual trauma. Similarly, they seem to impact the love and sex part of life. They might cause troubled relationships, cause an inability to find a stable relationship, incite problems in a relationship you already have, cause a fraught sex life, inability to have a desired sexual encounter, or cause sexual encounters to turn violent or unpleasant. They can also cause night terrors. She mentions one particular lineage wraith, that being a wraith that has been passed down a family line and has attached in utero. This is the case for a pair of twins that she mentions exorcising together. These are Jen and Sylvia Soska. I did not know anything about them. They are horror directors. She did her first and only double seance on these two twins together. She does all get into a good amount of detail on how she performs these, and the unique process for that double exorcism is quite interesting. Realm walkers are essentially trying to attach to someone of massive influence so that they can cause widespread damage, worldwide damage, which sounds familiar in 2025. If you're immediately wondering, she does say there was a realm walker present in the 2016 election. She wrote this in 2018, by the way. She says that Stalin had a realm walker, and she's very specific that an entity like this, a realm walker, isn't going to attach to an average person and make them powerful and famous. They're going to attach to somebody who's already there, who's already gotten there on their own, and leverage that power to its destructive ends. I think every world leader, we need to book book with RH. They all need to go have like a yearly tune-up or something. Can we make that happen, please? She doesn't encounter the realm walkers very often, but she has exorcised one from a famous person. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. She also mentions that a realm walker is attached to the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. And if you're a fan of haunted spaces, which I assume you are if you're watching this video, you probably already know of the Cecil Hotel as a haunted / cursed hotel associated with numerous tragic and grotesque events. Murder, suicide, drowning in the hotel's water tank on the roof, a lot of dark shit. In the book, she says that she can feel the presence of this realm walker from her home in Pasadena. And she seems to take it as kind of a future quest, a future battle she's sort of aware that she's gonna have to face down the line to exorcise the realm walker from the Cecil Hotel. From my little bit of digging, it looks like that hasn't happened yet. Given how many terrible things have happened there, I think that will be an extremely daunting project for her. She's aware of that. So I'll be keeping an ear out for whenever that happens. I think it will be fascinating. So how are these exorcisms happening? If this is something divorced from religion, if this isn't a priest standing with a cross and holy water shouting Bible verses, what exactly is happening? So she's essentially using high vibrational energy to force these attachments out. And this process involves maintaining a very high frequency herself and within her spirit room where she performs her exorcism. Within spirit room, she uses blends of specific herbs that she burns as incense to raise the energy in the room. And she also uses stones and crystals that she positions in a specific way to help direct the flow of energy in the room. She calls on her own spirit guides to assist her, in addition to other high vibrational beings that you would recognize as figures from traditional religion, Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, a real who's who, and she seems to call upon these entities based on what they're known for and how they can assist with whatever particular circumstance she's facing in an exorcism. Now that I've broken down sort of the nitty-gritty of her gift and what it is she does, I wanted to touch on her backstory a little bit because a lot of this book is a memoir, and I think there's a lot of really interesting portions of her story and how she came to this path. One is that she had a bit of a rough childhood. She describes her mother as a narcissist, and she had to learn to take care of herself in many ways when she was quite young. And this contributed to her essentially pushing away and denying her gifts and her abilities, basically until she was in her 30s. Since she was young, she dreamed of becoming a writer. It was a way for her to sort of escape into a different world. So she spends the early 2000s writing screenplays, writing for video games, comic books, graphic novels. She created the backstory for a Lara Croft Tomb Raider. She mentions that at this time, again, she's still actively trying to ignore and reject her ability and the idea of entities at all, but the fiction she was writing at the time was born out of things that she'd seen with her gift. She ends up moving to LA as her writing career really begins to take off, but again, she's still fighting the reality of her abilities, and that's causing problems within her life. It's after moving to LA that she has a car accident, and no one is injured in the car accident. Regardless, it is a catalyst event for her that pushes her to finally open up and accept her gift, and really starts her on this path of realization that this is what she's put on earth to do. She includes a very interesting story about the very first exorcism she did on a guy she was dating at the time. He is the first person she really reveals this truth to about herself, and from that first exorcism, you get a lot of interesting detail about how she's developed and refined her process along the way. Now, I've mentioned that she is living in LA when she finally opens herself up and has this realization that she needs to embrace this ability. That's where she's living as she develops this practice, and she's working in the showbiz industry. She's doing screenwriting. So as her practice develops over the years, she begins to attract the attention of notable people around LA. She mentions that about 60% of her clientele are not household names. They might be in the business as high-powered agents or producers or studio heads, but they're not necessarily actors that we would recognize on the street. She does also say that she has many clients who are household names, film stars, musicians, politicians even. She does not share anybody's name unless they have given her permission, like the Soska twins do, but she does have a few nicknames for people. There's one guy she refers to as Mr. Sunshine. He is not a client, but she works with him on a project, and she just mentions that his energy is so high frequency, so positive that she can feel his presence even if he's left a room or left a building. She does mention another famous person who is a client of hers that she refers to as Mr. Bad Vibes. This is a very famous celebrity apparently who did have a realm walker attached to him, and it requires a 3-day exorcism to remove this thing. Sounds like it was exhausting. Apparently she slept for 3 days after and took the rest of the month off. I do not blame her. I would do the same. Interestingly, she also mentions that the valley where she lives is the heart of the pornography industry, and that her name has gotten around within that industry as well, and that many porn stars come to her to rid themselves of attachments, and I thought that was really fascinating too. It sounds like she's providing a great service in LA. Something else I really love in this book is the practical tips and advice she gives for how to kind of protect your own energy, keep your own frequency high so that you're not as vulnerable to these entities, these attachments. She says her own connection to spirit really is central to her maintaining a high frequency state. She encourages communication with whatever, again, you think of as God's spirit source. She encourages doing something nice for somebody else that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily do, buying coffee for a coworker that you don't often speak to, buying a meal for a homeless person who you would usually try and avoid. Small acts of kindness that differ from your normal pattern can immediately raise your frequency and make you feel really good. She encourages singing as a great and easy way to immediately raise your frequency. And there are other suggestions she makes that fall well in line with other spiritual or new age traditions, like establishing a consistent practice of meditation, establishing a consistent practice of gratitude. We also drop some great tips for raising the frequency of a space, your home perhaps. So I mentioned earlier she makes her own blends of herbs that she burns in her spirit room during exorcisms to keep frequency very high, and she shares some of the specific herbs that she uses and also some of those blends in the book. She shares her exorcism blend, her blend to raise the vibration of a space, and her blend for manifesting abundance. In addition, she also discusses her use of stones and crystals, what to look for, and how to arrange them in your space or in your home to, again, raise the frequency. My final thoughts on this book are that if you are a seeker like me, I think you'll find something fascinating in this book, something that might enlighten a part of your own journey and experience. She does today have a website. If you go there, she directs all inquiries to her email. So if you feel like you have an attachment, you can reach out to her. Somewhere in my research and reading around, I did see her mention that there is a wait list and it's gotten long, so something to be aware of. But she does not require any payment. She does these by donation only. You don't have to pay any particular amount to have an exorcism performed by RH, which I think is a great policy and speaks to me about how genuinely she sees this as her life's calling. If you're interested in reading more about RH, she did an AMA on Reddit about 7 years ago when the book came out, and I think it's interesting not just for some of the answers she provides people, but also how she responds to the haters, because it's Reddit and of course haters show up. But her response to them is, to me, the very essence of being high vibrational, high frequency. Does not let it get to her, does not get triggered, does not take anything personally, says, hey, I'm not for everyone. If you don't believe, it's cool. And I love that attitude. I strive for that level of unbotheredness. I will link the AMA in the description if you want to check it out. I found my copy of Sister of Darkness through the beautiful public library system. I borrowed the book on Hoopla and read it on my phone. Took me 2 days. Pretty easy read. Definitely check your library for a copy. If my North Carolina library system has a copy, there's a good chance yours does too. Otherwise, you can find this wherever books are sold. As I always will on this channel, I will encourage you to seek it out from a small independent bookstore before you run to the big A. This is also available as an audiobook as well. It is read by RH if you wish to hear it in her own voice, her own words. I've dropped a link in the description to the audiobook in Libro FM, which is my favorite way to listen to audiobooks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get a chance to read Sister of Darkness. You might have noticed this is my first video on this particular YouTube channel, so subscribe if you're interested in this book or you read it and you loved it. We probably have similar book tastes, so stay tuned for other books I may cover that are in your wheelhouse as well. Let me know in the comments if you've read Sister of Darkness, if you were familiar with R.H. Stavis before now, if you were a Last Pod fan and you watched the seance. What did you think? I can't wait. I'm working until 11 p.m. that night, and I can't wait to come straight home and make myself a snack and turn on the seance. I'm so pumped. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.